Hello, my name is Raelan, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how I know I've completely recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS, and how I know, or I believe with every ounce of my being, that it's not coming back. And the reason this topic I believe is important is because I get asked this a lot. So clearly people are curious about my recovery journey, or understandably a bit nervous about their own and just wanting to know what to expect. So I'm going to share my experience with this, and we're going to do that right now. I'm not going to go into depth about my history with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS, because I've talked about that in so many other videos, but on the odd chance that this is your first video of mine, just know that I was sick for about 10 years. And the first about 2 years, I was incredibly sick. I would be what most people consider moderate ME/CFS. I had to quit everything, my job, I couldn't do anything. I was almost completely housebound, oftentimes couchbound or bedbound, and just all the symptoms, all the classic symptoms, just really in a living nightmare, trapped in my body like it was a prison. And then after a couple years, I improved somewhat and was more like mild CFS, which was still a nightmare and still a prison, just a slightly bigger prison. All right, so to start with, how I know I'm fully recovered. Now, I used to get asked the specific question a lot: when did you know you were fully recovered? And I used to think it was a bit of an odd question, because I think, well, isn't that kind of obvious? I knew I'd recovered when I no longer felt sick, like when I felt fine again and I could live my life. But the more time has passed and the more I've thought about it, I've realized that it's a little bit more complicated than that, which is probably why people are asking. And there's been a few points in my journey when I've been sort of tricked, a couple of points where I felt that I was fully recovered and probably pronounced myself fully recovered, but then I realized that I wasn't quite there. I'd come up across some new challenges mentally or physically that my body hadn't had to deal with before, and they were harder than they should have been. So I realized, okay, maybe I'm not quite there yet. A really good example of this that I often give is that I got to a point where I was really healthy, and to anyone around me, I'm sure looked like I was perfectly fine, and I thought I was perfectly fine. I was living my life. I was doing strength training 5 to 6 sessions every single week, long sessions, pushing as hard as I wanted, and there was no symptom flares, no post-exertional malaise. I was fine. So it felt like, this is it, like I'm back. This is, what more do you want? But I was a runner before I got sick, and eventually I wanted to start running again. And when I started running, it was harder than it should have been. Even though I could do the strength training, it was like starting back at nothing. And running was really difficult. So I realized, okay, I thought I was there, but maybe I'm not quite there yet. Thankfully, I was able to successfully start running again. I put together a program for myself for running that was sort of similar, or based on the same things that allowed me to be successful with my strength training workouts. And if you were curious about what worked for me with running, I'll link a video up here on the screen that explains the system that I used to get me running again. Another one that I faced during this journey, so now I'm healthy, I'm doing lots of things, I'm doing strength training, I'm running, I'm okay, I'm doing this YouTube channel, I have a Facebook group for ME/CFS that I'm running, I send out weekly newsletters, I do all these things, like I'm really quite busy. But then I went back to work full time, and when I went back to work full time, I didn't lay off any of those other things. I just smushed full-time work into the middle of all of that, and just tried as hard as I could to keep up with absolutely everything else. So I was working still am, 10, 12-hour days, almost always working weekends, just go, go, go. So now I'm working full time, I'm working out, running, strength training 5 to 6 days a week. I'm doing the YouTube channel and all the ME/CFS stuff. And I got to a point where I felt like I don't know if I could do this. I'm like, a healthy person, yeah, it's a lot, but should be able to do this. But then I realized at that point, I reminded myself, I'm like, I know my body is fine. My body is fine. I'm back. I can do all this stuff. And I think it was just old anxieties and maybe some old wiring coming back in my brain, where I was just like, this is too much, like a panic setting in. Like, I'm gonna get sick, I'm doing something bad to myself. So in that time, what I actually just did, and I turned it around really quite quickly, is just probably what would be termed a kind of brain training thing. I just, in those moments where I'd feel like, is it coming back? Or I'd start to panic, I would picture in my mind like a train track shifting. Like, my brain wants to go down that path of doing lots of stuff, post-exertional malaise, symptom flares, and I would just picture it switching over onto this new track of rest, eat well, take care of yourself, have energy, feel good. So every time I started to panic or worry it was coming back, I just picture that train track shifting over onto this new path that I was on, along with some other simple brain sort of things or just mental exercises and meditations, and I was okay. So, and I'm still doing this today. I have very long days, I have very busy weeks, but I'm okay. And recently I even ran a 10K race here in San Francisco, and it was very special to me because, not because I ran 10 kilometers, I'd done that before, that wasn't the first time since my recovery, but you know, it's in this big space with all these thousands of people and you get a medal and it just feels very official and is something to celebrate. So it was a really special time for me, and as I crossed the finish line in this 10K race, and it's just a 10K, it's not a marathon, but just a 10K is still a really big deal for someone who's been through ME/CFS. So I actually started to cry when I crossed the finish line. It was very emotional for me. And my husband Jeffrey came to meet me there. So after, you know, getting up very early, running 10 kilometers in San Francisco, up hills, you know, it was not easy. But then we like, why don't we just walk home? And it's over a half-hour walk home. So we walked home, and then shortly after that, we're going to a baseball game. And then we walked to the baseball game, and we're there for a few hours. And then after that, we walked to go out for dinner, went out for dinner, and then walked home. So it was a very long day, a very full-on day, but my energy now just lasts, which is incredible. An important thing to mention, I think, is that just like anyone else who's healthy or sick, if I don't take care of myself, I still feel like crap. I can get run down and be exhausted if I'm not prioritizing sleep, if I'm not eating well, if I'm drinking too much, if I'm not getting, you know, sunshine and all of that good stuff, then I start to feel really terrible. But the difference now is if I get myself into those places, which I do sometimes because I have a very busy life, all I have to do is dial it back and get some rest, and then I bounce back quickly. Whereas before, it might have taken me months to bounce back, and now it could be, you know, a day or two. So this is how I know I've recovered and why I've decided to do this video right now, because I have now added back in all the things in my life that I want to be there. I can't think of anything else that I had before I got sick that I haven't brought back, and there's nothing else that I want to add in that isn't there. There are no new tests or trials for my mind or my body. There's nothing else where I'm scared, like, oh, but am I going to be able to handle that? You know, I can work and travel and socialize and do all the things, and I'm okay. So for me, that is recovery. No more feeling sick, no more feeling scared, no more symptoms coming up, no more repercussions for normal everyday activities. All right, so now how do I know it's not coming back? Now, I don't think there's anyone on the planet who could tell me for sure that this isn't coming back for me. We just don't understand this condition well enough yet. But despite that, I believe with every ounce of my being that this isn't gonna come back for me. And the reason that I feel this way is that there is a massive shift in who you are, in my experience, and from everyone I've talked to who has fully recovered from these sorts of conditions, in who you are once you get past it versus who you are when you went into it. I have a different level, a significantly higher level of confidence in my knowledge about myself, in my knowledge about my body, in the way I take care of myself, in the way I pay attention and I listen to those little teeny tiny warning signs, and I no longer would wait until my body is screaming at me before I listened. So it's just a completely different place to be in. And although, I mean, my ME/CFS was triggered by a virus, I believe it was a perfect storm of a whole bunch of things that actually caused ME/CFS for me. It was a very poor idea of what self-care was. It was working out 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, while working full-time at a very, very stressful job that I did not like, and going to school part-time, and going out partying on the weekends, and drinking way too much, and just having no sense of self-care outside of wanting to look good. So driving myself hard and dieting and pushing myself at the gym to try and get my physical appearance in order. But I really just didn't listen to my body at all. I had no sense of how to take care of myself, and I didn't listen to any of the check engine lights that came on ever. I just powered through. So that's why I believe strongly that it's not coming back. I'm just not there anymore. I would never put myself in a place again for my body to shut down like that. And yes, there may be a genetic component to it. I have a family history of ME/CFS, but as we are learning, genetics are not destiny. It doesn't determine what's going to happen to you. There is a lot of range of how that can be expressed, and the environment that we're in and how we take care of ourselves and our habits and our behaviors have a lot more power to determine our health than our genes actually do. I haven't talked to a single person who has fully recovered from ME/CFS who is scared of this just coming back overnight. Like they're just gonna wake up one day like they did the first time and be incredibly sick again. Like we're all in such a different place, and that fear just isn't, it's just not there. And you can click here up on the screen somewhere for a list of interviews that I've done with people all over the world who were incredibly sick, many of them with severe ME/CFS, bedbound, just really bad cases, and they fully came back from it. And it's just really inspiring, and you'll hear them all say different but similar versions of everything I just said here. So thank you for watching, and whatever you're facing, keep going. You have totally got this. And if you found anything in this video helpful or enjoyable at all, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching to the end. You are a rock star. I look forward to your comments in the video description, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.